Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming to our Global Career Development series about teaching English in Spain. My name is Paula Levitt, and I oversee Global Experiential Learning at the Global Learning Hub. I just wanted to thank you all for coming today, for our guest speaker who is here, Reyes, from the General Consulate of Spain in San Francisco. And before I pass it along to her, which is what you all are here for, I wanted to talk about a couple of things related to the Global Learning Hub. So the Global Learning Hub is the unit at UC Davis within Global Affairs that's helping to organize this session today, which is part of our Global Career Development series. And if you're not familiar with the Global Learning Hub, this is our virtual and physical when we're on campus space for you to learn about all things global learning related. So it is the space on campus to find out about study abroad, global internships and research, community engaged global learning, projects with a global focus, and skills and leadership opportunities, as well as intercultural courses. So feel free, if you have not checked out our Global Learning Hub, to take a peek at our website. We have a robust search tool that allows you to search for different programs by country, by virtual opportunities, by community engagement. And we also have a whole part of our website dedicated to global career development, which is part of this series. We also have a page on part of our website that's called After Graduation. So many of you might be thinking about this as an opportunity after graduation to teach English. So feel free to explore that website, and I will pop it in the chat as well. Before we get started, I also wanted to introduce my colleague, Brianne Holden, who is going to speak with us about her experience in Spain teaching English on this program. But before I pass it along to her, I wanted to also make sure that everybody is aware of our upcoming Global Learning Conference. Can anyone let me know if they've heard of this so far? Maybe give me a reaction or just a comment in the chat. Has anyone heard of the Global Learning Conference at UC Davis? If not, I'm very excited to be the first person to share this with you today. Registration just opened. This is wasn't it yesterday? No, maybe there was a different conference yesterday. This is April 23rd to 25th, and it's a 3-day conference all about global learning. We will have different presentations for you to listen to, different workshops, including workshops about teaching English abroad. And so definitely encourage you to come. This will be our second year. It has a career focus. We'll have folks from LinkedIn talking about how to translate your global experiences into your resume and into your future as you're searching for jobs. And so this is a free conference, and I definitely encourage you to sign up. We'll also include a link to that in the chat and in a follow-up email today. So without further ado, let's get passed along to what you are here today for, which is to learn about teaching English in Spain. And so Bree, my colleague who also works in the Global Learning Hub, is going to chat a little bit about her experience. We'll pass it along to Reyes, who will talk to you about all of the details and logistics that you need to know. And then we'll come back and regroup for a Q&A at the end.
Thanks, Paula. So I'll spend just the first 4 or 5 minutes chatting with you all about my experiences on the program. And then at the end, I'm going to tie it a little bit more directly to my career trajectory and how it's really tied in and helped shape my own professional development. So you'll see on this slide, I have a map of Madrid up. I participated in the program a while ago, so my experiences might look slightly different than what the program looks like today, though I am still part of a number of the social groups, and it seems like there's probably still a lot of overlap. So I participated in 2011 and 2012, and I had the opportunity to select in ranking order 3 different areas of Spain that I'd be interested in living and working in, and Madrid was my top. And the reason being is I had studied abroad previously in Salamanca, Spain, loved it, but I had never lived in a really large metropolitan city before, and so Madrid really called my attention for that reason. and even though I lived in the city, I actually worked just outside of the city, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. Um, so, and if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please, Paula, thank you. So in terms of the programs, for me, I found a lot of independence in it. It's really different from my experiences with study abroad in the sense that I had to do a lot of the legwork myself in the program. So when I applied and I was able to go, when I arrived, I was of course in advance given the school that I was going to work at, the hours a week that I would work, my supervisor for a particular contact. But then there's a lot of pieces that I had to do on my own that were independent. And so things like finding an apartment, figuring out the transportation, although with the help of my supervisor as well, opening a bank account and applying for residency in Spain. So there are these sort of like really large pieces that I hadn't done before in the US a lot of times. I mean, maybe I looked in the US for an apartment, but I think my parents helped me open a bank account when I was 16. So there are these elements of getting acclimated to a new country and to a new culture where you have to sort of figure out these different pieces, like how do I work like the fruit stand that's on the side of the road on my way to work, and like how do I communicate in a language that's not my native language and that was pretty weak at the time. It's developed a lot since then, and so there's a lot of really cool pieces where at the time they felt like maybe some challenges, but in retrospect they were some of the highlights in some ways because they taught me so much about resiliency and independence and gave me a lot of problem solving skills that I use even today. And so it was really hard for me to choose any photos. And actually, I think I lost a lot of my photos on one of my hard drives. So I've just highlighted a couple different pieces. On the very left there's a park called Retiro in the middle of the city. And I lived really close to it. So I'd often go walk and have picnics with my friends. And they have these little rowboats where you can rent them and then go out and sort of just wander or be around the lake. And I had never been on a rowboat, so you could see I'm really excited about photo because it was probably within the first week that I was there. I might have even just landed my apartment at that point because it was pretty nearby. And so my friend and I just went out and grabbed some like bread and ham and cheese. And I never liked ham before I went to Spain, and it was just so much fun to be able to go and ride around. The top middle photo, when I was there, the Euro Cup was going on, and it was actually the year that Spain had won. And it was incredible because, I mean, soccer is such a big part of the culture in Spain. And so being able to go to the stadium, even though we definitely didn't have tickets, but they had these huge watch screens and these huge parties, and everyone would wear the Spanish flag colors, which is why you'll see a lot of red and yellow. And it was so much fun and so social, like socializing with just random people around you and making new friends. And then this last picture is of me and my friend, probably within our first couple months of living in Spain. And behind us are these Egyptian architecture that was sent over from Egypt. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place to watch the sunset. And so there's so many more photos that I'd love to share, but those are at least a couple to share right now. And one thing that I wanted to preface that I realized I didn't say is, if it wasn't the best year of my life, it was like their top one of the best years of my life. It was such a transformational experience in a way that I had never had before. And I more than ever reminisce about it now, especially given today's climate and situation. So anyway, so I'll kind of move on from there and say one of the reasons that I wanted to teach abroad, I had mentioned that I had studied abroad. I'd studied abroad twice, once in Thailand and once in Salamanca, Spain. And the first time that I had studied abroad was really my first real integration with Spanish language, and loved learning Spanish in Spain. It was really different than the Spanish that I had learned in California. They used a couple different tenses, definitely a different accent that took me a while to adjust to, but it was something that I really enjoyed. And I knew that I had wanted to teach abroad after I had studied abroad, even in Thailand, which was a high school program for me. And I knew I wanted to do that because I wanted to do something that would be really independent in a way that I could work and still make money, but live overseas. So a immersive experience that wasn't necessarily through a program, but something that I could really do on my own. And this is a program, but it also was very independent. And I wanted to develop my Spanish skills because I'm not a natural born linguist. It takes me quite a while to learn a language, and even still I develop my Spanish skills, but that was really important to me. And so being able to live in Spain for a full year, I knew that could help lend itself well to my Spanish. And it was a good bridge for me because I knew I wanted to go to graduate school, but it was kind of a funny time because in 2008, of course, we had our last recession. And in 2011, the global economy was still just kind of recovering. So it was actually a good time for me to go abroad as well and sort of bridge that gap. So if you don't mind going to the next slide, I don't want to take up too much time. And so I'll sort of just finish with a couple different pieces. So one of the things that was interesting for me is when I've never been a commuter, ever. And when I got to Spain and I didn't have access to a car, and of course they have amazing public transportation in Madrid. I was assigned to a school in Alcalá de Henares, which is actually outside of the city. So I lived in city center. You'll see Atocha Cercanías right here, and I lived pretty close by. I'd walk about 2 blocks. I would take the Cercanías, which is it's a train, 45 minutes to Alcalá. I would get off the train and I would either catch a ride with one of the teachers who would stop for other teachers who lived outside of the city, or I would walk for about 20 minutes. And so my commute in total was about an hour and 10 minutes or so. And that was new for me because I had never commuted that far. And that's pretty normal. In a lot of places, that's pretty normal. And so I wanted to share that because I know folks can get placed all over the city and in and outside of the city. And it was really interesting for me to learn how to navigate public transportation in a way that was distinct from when I had lived in Salamanca, because Salamanca is a very walkable city. And so you could take the bus, but you can really walk it pretty easily. And Madrid is not, it's huge. So it's really necessary how to learn how to use the buses, the metro, and also the Cercanías system. And so I think that was actually really great for me to be able to navigate public transportation, since navigation does not come naturally for me either. So this is just a really brief overview of that piece, but I think some of the highlights for me outside of some of the slides that I just showed you is really being able to meet Spanish friends, but also international friends. So the program doesn't, at least when I was there were a lot of Americans, but I also made friends with people from the UK, people that I taught with in the same school where there was 2 people from the UK and then 2 of us from the US, and then friends from Australia, New Zealand, and a number of different places. And so it felt like a very global environment, even as we were all teaching English. And that was something that I also really valued. So I will stop there, so Reyes, that you can have your time, and I can circle back at the end to talk, answer questions and talk about professional development.
Thank you so much, Bree.
Great hearing your experience, Brian. I think it's pretty much what most language assistants would say, that it was like one of the best experiences of their life. I myself did the experience going to England from Spain, and I have the same feelings. That year was the year I grew up, really, and I had to fend for myself. So it was very special for me, and I really think that it opens your mind to get involved in many things you wouldn't have thought of, and to get by on your own, and to think I am an adult and I have to solve all my problems by myself. So it was a great experience as well. Now let me see, before I start, let's see if I can share this screen with you. Here we are. Okay, let me go to the beginning. Okay, change this over here. Now, before I start, actually, I would like to play this promotional video we produced last year, which I think is in a nutshell, it gives you all the information about the program, why the program is so interesting for young people, for juniors, seniors, graduates. Okay, so let me play it.
Fancy living in Spain? Join the Language and Culture Assistance Program of the Education Office of the Spanish Embassy. It offers a fantastic opportunity to spend a school year in Spain as an assistant teacher, sharing your language and knowledge with Spanish students K through 12 and adults.
Con ella aprender inglés es estupendo. Chloe es la mejor.
I got medical insurance and a monthly allowance to help pay for accommodation and expenses, and I really think that this experience will help with my career in the future.
Spain also offers you amazing travel and cultural possibilities.
I couldn't have imagined this was going to be such a life-changing experience.
And what about the food?
And the lively streets.
And the wonderful people.
Yo he mejorado mucho mi español.
Don't miss this opportunity. Learn more about the Language and Culture Assistance Program of the Education Office of the Embassy of Spain.
And grow as you share.
Now, let's go to the next one. So now let's give you a bit more about the program. This is an outreach of the Ministry of Education of Spain, and it's an opportunity really for juniors, seniors, and graduate students to share the language and culture with our students in elementary school, middle school, high school, and schools of languages as well. At the same time, obviously, by being there, you are going to absorb a lot of the culture and the language we have in Spain. So all this is combined with a little bit of money you get, is a monthly allowance you will get, and the medical insurance, which is important to have. So exactly where are the language assistants assigned to? Elementary schools, secondary schools, and language schools. Now, language schools are schools for anyone in Spain over the age of 16 who wants to learn a language. They are state-run, and the teachers are public servants. Like myself, I am a language teacher at a language school in Spain. And we get people come in usually in the afternoon and evening, maybe 3-4 hours a week to learn languages. And obviously, which language is the one that most people want to learn? English. So we have a lot of language assistants placed at language schools where you can meet people of different ages because the groups are mixed. You can have doctors, or you can have housewives, or you can have students, high school students who want to learn a language after school. So whereabouts in Spain? Brian showed you the map of Madrid, but I want to place Spain in the map. I'm sure you all know where it is, but here at the bottom of Europe and just across from it, we can go to Morocco. This dark area in the peninsula is Spain, and the white area would be Portugal, and this is our flag, the one you see when we have a football match. Okay, so all these blue areas are the different regions of Spain, and the regions in Spain are called comunidades autónomas. So you are going to hear the term autonomous region all the time when you apply for the program. And these are the areas that Brian was saying that she applied to 3 areas, and she applied precisely to the area of Madrid. Madrid is a very large area, but she actually got a posting right in the middle, I understand. But it can be in other places, not necessarily right in the center of Madrid. Now, these areas, you see very populated areas like Catalonia or Andalusia around here, but other areas don't have so much population. And maybe you can think of them as more remote and less appealing, but let me tell you that people in smaller areas are really, really happy because they get more support. And I also say this because I come from a very remote area, which is Asturias. It's a beautiful area. We love our language assistants, and they get a lot of support at our schools there. But the same with Cantabria or with Navarra, with different areas. And we have language assistants all over Spain, in all the regions. So when you do your research, it's good maybe to have a look at different areas, because I think everybody, when we think of Spain, everybody thinks either of Madrid or Barcelona, but there is a lot more to the country than Madrid and Barcelona. Okay, so let's see, why do people apply for this program? And we've had all sorts of answers for this, but one of the answers is because we have such crazy and happy celebrations going on. This one is the San Fermin, and people run in front of the bulls. Please don't ever do this. Let just professionals run in front of the bulls. You can watch it, but people get killed, everybody doing every year doing this. So I would never do it. But there is also La Tomatina, which is people throwing tomato at each other, like tons of tomatoes. Or Las Fallas, this is where they produce these enormous floats during the year. Floats get burned after the 19th of March, but only one survives. They have like allegorical characters, and it's really a nice celebration in Valencia. Other people tell us they love Spain because of the variety of the architecture, and you will have the opportunity to travel and be able to see all this fantastic architecture we have. And it's not just Roman style. You can see we have modern architecture as well. Other people tell us that they love Spain because you can go from the sea to the mountain in no time, which is true, because we have very good public transport, and you can, and Spain is very small. Think of it as even smaller than California. So you can, and like very round if you want. So you can travel anywhere in a very short time. Other people tell us because there is a musical offer in all aspects of music. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a lot going on this year, but we really offer good concerts in Spain as well, in the main cities at least. And everybody tell us they love Spain because of its food. I mean, that's something like, no one says, I hate food in Spain. Other people love soccer and sports, particularly soccer, because I think it's the sport in Spain. Whatever the reason, because there might be any reasons, just to get away and have a different experience. Let's see what you need to apply for this program, because I think you can probably, all of you, apply if you want to. You need to have a US passport, which I'm sure you all have. You need to speak English, even if you speak other languages at home, which many of you speak different languages, but I'm sure you all speak English like a native speaker or nearly. Have a basic level of Spanish. You mentioned this, that you didn't know a lot of Spanish when you went over to Spain. You don't need Spanish to work at our schools as an assistant, but obviously you need some Spanish to get by, because you have to shop for food, you have to find out your transportation, to look for an apartment, at least a little bit of Spanish to get by, because you will learn a lot of Spanish during the year, but you need a little bit to start with. then you can be any of these categories. Oops, one less. Oops, here we are. You can be a junior, senior, graduate, associate degree, or if you're in a community college, you have to be in the last semester. Okay. What else? You will need a physical and mental health certificate when you apply for your visa. Not right now when you do the application to the program, but then when you apply for your visa to go over to Spain, one of the requirements is a medical certificate from a doctor. And also, when you apply for your visa, you will need a clean background check. So those are certificates that we are not asking for you to provide them right now, but you will need them in the future. And the ages range from 18 to 60. We have had, I remember having an Australian language assistant who was like 58. She had retired from teaching and decided, she knew about the program, decided to come to Asturias as a language assistant. And she had a really wonderful experience. It was like, well, I get some money. I do 12 to 60, she did 12 hours a week in a school and had lots of time to do other things. So it was a great opportunity to spend a year in Europe for her.
There's a question about program requirements in the chat, which is, would you recommend having a TOEFL certification before applying? So that's teaching English as a foreign language for those who don't know.
No, you don't need it. In fact, I mean, many of the language assistants we have are not really thinking that they are going to go into teaching in the future. This is experience for anybody. And because you're going to help sometimes in different subjects we teach in English in our bilingual programs. Imagine that you are graduating in something related to science and you can help with the math teacher in the bilingual program. So it's not necessarily to do with languages, and you don't need a certificate. We take it that you have a US passport and your language is English, and you will help with all our oral skills because teachers are foreigners. We are not native speakers of English, and we need the help of native speakers to help with the oral skills. Right. Now, what exactly will you have to do? You will be helping a teacher. We emphasize this every year, and we know sometimes teachers leave the language assistants on their own, but I think we've been working on this over the years to make sure the teacher is in charge of the classroom and the language assistant is there to help and to provide practice, listening, speaking practice, but under the supervision of a teacher, because you are not an accredited teacher over there, and students shouldn't be with the language assistant on their own. Okay, unless you make like little groups and you set a task for the language assistant to do with a little group, maybe in another room, but not to be in charge of the whole group. Okay. Now, so your tasks will include conducting conversation lessons, giving cultural presentations, whatever you bring to our bilingual programs there, any presentation about your culture here, what you do at home, how you celebrate things, what sort of music you hear, where do you go on holidays, what's family life like, what's university life like. Anything is interesting for us because many of the students will never have the opportunity to travel to the United States. And the language assistant is like the only link, real person from the United States coming to our classroom to tell us about how they live in a different country. So If you go to Spain on the program, maybe it's a good idea to take some, I don't know, maybe things that you think are representative of your country and you can use in a classroom. That would be good. Now, sometimes language assistants are invited to take part in department meetings. And that's an opportunity for the language assistant to meet other teachers from the school, to listen to Spanish and get the language they use at the meetings, which is obviously specialized and not the language they are going to hear in the streets. So it's a good idea to participate if you are invited. You are not really like, it's not something compulsory to attend meetings, but if they ask you to, I think that you should take part in the meetings. Also, there are extracurricular activities just the same way you have them here in your high schools and elementary schools. So if you can take part and they invite you to take part in field trips or sports events, take the opportunity to collaborate, because that will be on your benefit as well. Now, so let's see. What are the characteristics of the program? Depending on the region, some regions ask you to work 12 hours, others ask you to work 16 hours. Class periods. A class period is usually 55 minutes. That depends on the sort of contract they have in the region. I think Madrid goes to 16 class periods, but many other regions go only to 12 class periods. Okay, and we ask everyone to keep your schedule between Monday and Thursday or Tuesday and Friday. So all the language assistants may have a 3-day weekend in case they want to travel and visit other language assistants elsewhere and travel in Spain. Now, the monthly stipend goes from 700 to 1,000 euros. And that also depends on the number of hours, usually. Okay, that sounds very little, but you have to think that 1,000 euros is approximately the minimum wage, monthly wage or salary in Spain, and some families live on that money. Obviously, it's not a lot of money, and you will most likely have to share your apartment with other students or other language assistants to have enough money for everything. Okay. Now, the length of the program is 8 months, from October till May. You have basic medical insurance, and we say basic. You have medical insurance as I have medical insurance when I am in Spain. I have basic medical insurance there. If I want to do something very special in my face or in my teeth, I have to pay for it. It's not covered by my insurance. Likewise, if you have a medical condition, a chronic medical condition that needs some sort of special medication, we advise you to take a private insurance on top of this and bring it with you, okay? Because this medical insurance will cover if you get ill, if you have an accident, but not if you have something you bring with you and it needs special treatment. Now, this selection of 3 regions is something you will need to do. We ask all the language assistants to explore before they submit the application and select 3 regions, because we always try to place you in your first choice. But if everybody asks for Madrid, there won't be enough positions for Madrid, and we'll have to go into your second choice or even into your third choice. Okay. Now, you will need to find housing on your own. You mentioned that, Brianne. And usually what they give you at the community, the autonomous community where you work, is like a list where you can look for accommodation. If you're going to live in a town where there is a university, they usually have links to the university website where they share accommodation. And that's a good idea if you share accommodation with other university students from Spain or from different countries, because you get more of the experience than if you share with someone from the United States. Now, you have an orientation course at the beginning, which is just 1 day, and then they will give you a certificate when you finish the program. And you will have the same paid vacation as any teacher. So we have like 3 weeks at Christmas and 10 days at Easter, and you will have those vacations as well. And there is the option to renew, and usually when you renew for the 2nd year, if you have a good evaluation from your school, there is no problem. If you want to renew like a 3rd year, then I think you go to the back of the list. You don't have like a priority, okay? Now, how do you apply? You can apply. It's the application process is open right now until the 6th of April. And I emphasize there is no payment, because we have had many scams trying to charge you for the application. If they charge you, if they ask you for your credit card number, that's not our program. We don't charge. The only money you will have to pay is when you apply for your visa, because there is a visa fee. But we won't charge for the application and the selection and all of this, okay? So you have to go online through Profex to do your registration. So you have to create your own profile in Profex, and you have to take into account that first comers are first served, okay? Now, some of the things I advise you to do first is to go to the application. Oh, it says it can open here, maybe because it's Zoom. Okay, I can't open it right now, but in the PDF I sent you, I'm sure the link works. So you can, if you are going to share the presentation I sent you, Paula, with the participants, they can open it there. In the application guidelines, you have like everything I have said, but better explain with a link to our website, how to create your profile in Profex. I'm not sure why it doesn't let me open the links in Zoom, but never mind. Yeah, you have how to navigate Profex, a manual, and 2 videos. They are very useful, these videos, because they are in English, and they tell you in one video how to register in Profex, and the other one how to submit the application, complete and submit the application. Okay, so you register and you upload a number of documents, a checklist that you will find in the program, the main page of your passport, your college transcripts or diploma if you have finished, and a cover letter you have to write of 250 words plus about why you want to participate in this program. And then a letter of recommendation that you can ask one of your professors to write for you, or someone you have worked with. They can write this letter, and there is like a guideline in the website saying what this letter is about, what the person should write in this letter. Now, medical certificate is only required during the application if you have a Spanish passport or a European passport on top of your, and you are thinking of entering Europe with your European passport. In that case, you are not going to apply for a visa. So we ask for the medical certificate now at the time of application. And once you have uploaded all those, you fill out the application, choose the 3 destinations you want. You submit the application online. You don't have to send anything. You wait for confirmation email from Profex. This may take months because we have right now like 5,000 applications already. So our services in Madrid have to go through all of them. They have to filter all the applications, and they get back to the candidates when they organize the process with the regions of Spain, and that may take months. So you may get your email by June, maybe, and then when you get your email, you have 5 days to accept the offer. Yeah? So if you don't want the offer, you just say you don't want it. If you accept it, then in Madrid, they contact the region who is going to take you in. So the region provides this letter of acceptance. This letter of acceptance says the school where you're going to go, the region, that they have insurance for you, that they are going to give you 700 a month or whatever. And that letter is needed to apply for the visa. So you cannot apply for the visa before you have this letter of acceptance. Once you have, yeah.
Sorry, how many teachers does the ministry hire every year?
Language assistants, around 5,000.
Okay.
Yeah, 4,600, I think it was last year, and it wasn't a good year because of the COVID.
Right.
Yeah.
But so you've already received 5,000 applications. And
we have already received, this year we have a lot of applications, but let me tell you, many people apply to many things, obviously, at this time, and then they drop out. So it doesn't matter if we have 5,000, they always ask you, ask us here, please try to find more language assistants, more candidates, because we have many bilingual programs in Spain, and all the different regions want to take in language assistants to help in the bilingual programs. So some of the language assistants are the stipend, and the insurance is paid by the Ministry of Education, and they distribute among the regions. But then the regions say, okay, from our budget, regional budget, we also want to have 20 more. So we'll pay for those, and we'll pay the insurance for those. But the ministry provides from the pool it has, provides those language assistants for the regions. And some regions like Madrid, they want like thousands. It's just incredible. Madrid wants a lot of language assistants. So I know we have a lot of candidates, but we need more. We need candidates all the time. And we love candidates from the United States. I know they come from elsewhere, from UK, Ireland, New Zealand, Australia, many countries, but from India, but we love language assistants from the US. So once you have your letter of acceptance, then you apply for the visa. Usually you applied for a visa within 3 months of traveling. So if you're going to travel in October, you can really apply before July, August, September. Most people apply July, August, let's say. It takes a while, but I think getting the visa is like the most painful thing because it takes quite a while, and they have so few people working here and so many applications that they get overwhelmed. but I mean, it all works in the end. And that's it, really. This is the email address for the program if you have any questions, norteamericanos@educacion.gov.es. And this is the QR for the program. That's the page I wanted to show you, but the link didn't work. You have the page, and here the application on the side, and then you just go into the application. All the information about the application, all the documents you need are there. So it's but you have to work through first through the guidelines of the program. I think it's the first document you have to work through. And that's it. We have the education office, our social media if you want to join, because we always have announcements there, and we are here for anything you might need.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I'm going to share my screen again, and we have a couple more minutes. And so what I'm going to do is send it back to Bree to just chat a little bit about how this experience impacted her global career. And then we'll open it up for questions for either Reyes or Brianne.
Awesome. Thank you, Paula. And I'll make sure to keep this quick so we have time for questions. This is just a photo of my classroom. So I had mentioned that I had lived in the city center, but I commuted to Alcalá de Henares, and I worked at an elementary school called Antonio Machado, and I worked with a number of different classrooms, but I believe this was my second grade class. And one of the interesting pieces for me, at least, is I taught British English, and I'm pretty sure that's probably still correct. And so there were certain things that I had to get used to that was new to me, speaking American English. And I think one of the first things that my English teacher, or actually my supervisor, who wasn't this person, her name was Lola, or is Lola, is she turned to us at the very beginning and said, "The rubbers are in the closet," which in American English means something very, very different than
oh God, yeah.
And so me and the other American
erasers.
Yeah, very strangely, like, what did she just say? This is in this elementary school, and why is she telling us this? But in British English, it means eraser. So there's definitely some spelling and vocabulary I had to adjust my own English to, and I felt in some ways that I was learning two languages, because English is actually pretty different than American English. And the one last thing that I would add about that I think highlights a lot of this is when I was working 16 hours in Madrid and making €1,000 a month. But one of the real cool benefits, or the two cool benefits about this, one, the private healthcare that I had, or what you call the basic healthcare, was like luxury healthcare to me.
Yeah, for Americans, I know. I know.
It
is basic. I say it's basic because it is basic in some ways for us. But I know it's a lot for Americans.
Yeah, I had a healthcare provider come to my house, no cost. It was amazing. It was like I hit another level completely. So there's a lot of really great pieces to that. But I know that we want to leave time for questions. And so in terms of the connection to career development, so I had mentioned earlier on about the independent piece, and I feel like the program holistically provided a lot of soft skills that you might not really think about when you're thinking about applying to the program. And so for sure, adaptability, resiliency, and independence. I had mentioned problem solving. That was huge when it comes to navigating languages, transportation, different cultures, trying to also solve challenges that come up in a school when you have, you're not understanding something, or if there's a way something's being done and you sort of have to navigate certain communication challenges or differences of opinion. And so a lot of things that are really necessary in a professional field. And I think it sort of revs up a sort of like go-getterness. Like you really have to be pretty active. It's not a passive program. You have to be active in the things that you're doing and really pursuing. And so I think that really lends itself well to next steps in career development. And so I've been thinking a lot about the reflection of this. And I think there are both indirect and direct ways in which this program specifically helped with my own career development. My goal and I had friends in the program, some of them who were interested in being educators and a lot of them who were not interested in being educators. So by no means would I think that this is a program just for educators. And I know, Reyes, that you had mentioned that early on as well. I knew I wanted to be in education, but I didn't want to be a classroom teacher. I knew I always wanted to work with adult learners and be in higher education. That was really important to me. And I knew I wanted to go back to school, but I had to figure out the best way to do that. And so when I came back to the US, I knew I just wanted 1 year to make money before I went to graduate school. So I didn't want to find myself in a position of having to like settle into a career when I knew I was just going to probably leave a year later when I was applying to graduate school. And so, but I still wanted something that was relevant to my interests. And I ended up being able applying for and getting a job teaching speech for K through 12 students. And the only reason that I was actually able to get that job really is because I had classroom experience that I would not have had, and I would not have qualified for that. And it sort of leads to a domino effect, but that job then in turn landed me a job at a community college, right, as a writing and speech tutor. And the reason that was actually really, really key in my next steps. So it's very much a domino effect, but it was really key in my next steps because when I applied to graduate school in my master's program, it's hard to get a master's program paid for. And I was able to actually work at the study abroad office at the University of Oregon where I received my master's. But the only reason I was able to do that is because they needed to hire like a graduate teaching assistant for the study abroad office to help with scholarship writing. And because I had the experience of being a writing and speech tutor at a community college, it allowed me to get that job. And that job was absolutely key in paying for my graduate studies, or at least the vast majority of it. But it was also key in my own professional development because I knew I wanted to work in this field of higher education and working for a global office. And of course, I'm doing that at Davis now. So it's very much aligned with my current career trajectory. But had I not gotten a job that helped me pay for my master's program, which was huge because it saved me quite a lot of money, but it also gave me the professional experience that I needed to get to this point at UC Davis. And so it was a huge, huge domino effect from teaching English in Spain to the different types of jobs that I was able to sort of like get step by step to get the types of career experience that I needed in order to get to where I'm at right now. And even as I've been at Davis and having different career opportunities come up, having a second language skill, which I've continued to develop in different ways, has also been really helpful because then I was able to even help go on a program in Argentina, for example, and be an on-site coordinator for a program there for a month. And so that's a professional development opportunity in my current career that I would not have been able to have had I not learned Spanish early on. And my experiences, particularly with this program, helped with that. So there's so many different domino pieces that could go down, but it's really just to show that it's not just one way that this program helped me in my professional development, but it's really holistic, step by step, directly and then indirectly too.
Yeah, I think one of the things, sorry, that you mentioned of having another language, I think having another language, once you start and you spend a whole year working in a different language, then you don't want to hear anything else in Spanish translated into English. You go on to whatever is in Spanish is in Spanish. Give you like a different mind. My mind is split into languages, and I can think some things in Spanish and other things in English. And be able to understand differently the concept of Spanish and the things that happen in that language. That helps you in life for many things, really, and for communication and to share experiences with other people you may be working with in different fields. It has happened to me in other fields. Okay.
Great. I'm going to go through the questions in the Q&A, and we'll just continue to answer questions until for as long as we're able. So one question for you, Reyes, is that in the Profix section of the application, the past work experience and skills section is marked as optional. Would you recommend filling it out? This person says that the ones that they would list are not necessarily childcare or teaching, but should they fill it out anyways? And will it make their application more competitive?
I think it's not, if it is optional, you don't need to fill it in, but you can always give like a short detail of other things you have done. It's good for the people who are going to have you over there to have as much information about you. But because you are going to say a lot of you in your letter, I think the key piece is the letter you are going to write, because I was in Asturias on the other side receiving language assistance, and I remember reading these marvelous letters from the language assistants and thinking, oh my God, I won't be able to find a language assistant for this place right in the mountains, is so remote. And suddenly I read this letter, I love mountaineering and I would love to be able, oh my God, here is my candidate. So those letters where you talk about yourself, your motivation, and you can obviously in them say what your background is, it's more important than what you fill in Profex, because at the end of the day, the person from the regions is not going to have access to Profex and see the information in Profex. So no, I think you can fill it in, but quickly. Don't spend a lot of time in that section.
Great, thank you. The next question is about how this would work for a student who is transferring from a community college to a university. And I'm not sure that I understand the second part of this question, so I might need you to unmute and clarify, but it says, would this cover time at school we would miss?
I don't understand the question, sorry. I mean, if the person is moving from the community college to university, has finished is in the second semester of the community college, so this person can apply to the program. The second part, I don't know what it means really. If being in Spain will mean something towards the degree at college, I don't think so. Maybe you know better, Paula. I don't know.
Feel free to unmute if you ask this question. Otherwise, or clarify in the chat. Otherwise, I'll move on to the next one, which is how selective or competitive are admissions for this program? Do a lot of candidates get rejected?
No, I don't think many candidates get rejected unless they do not meet these criteria of having the US passport, being at least on the second semester and on the last semester of community college, or be or seniors. Most of the applications come from graduates, really. People who, when they graduate, they have like this time that they think, I'm going to take like a year off from continuing studying and go to Spain. But if you meet the criteria, you have like many possibilities of being accepted. Mm-hmm.
The next question is about tips that you might have for the personal statement, if there's a section or place that you can direct them for specific tips. Also, there's a question about how they notice they're supposed to address the Ministry of Education. How exactly do they do that?
Okay, tips for the letter is be as honest as you can about yourself, because the purpose of the letter is really to learn about you, so we can place you in the best position, in the best area, in the best school for your needs. So be honest about what you expect, what you like. It's a letter to know you, really. And what was the other part of the question? Sorry, Paula.
It was said that they should be addressing the Ministry of Education. So is there do they say, you know, dear Ministry of Education, or is there?
You can say dear sir, madam, and address whoever is going to read that formally, because it is a formal letter. Mm-hmm.
Is there a specific name or anything that they should know, or have it be more general?
No, you can say dear sir, madam. Actually, I'm not sure, but there might even be an example in the website. I haven't checked that.
Okay. The next question has to do with COVID policies, and the student's wondering what the COVID policies are currently in Spain and what they would need to do in terms of COVID related, things, what they need to know, both now and also potentially imagining when this program starts
Yeah.
in September.
In Spain, students have started this academic year. All students from elementary and secondary education have started in class, in going to school. Reduced groups, they have organized it in different ways, but they go to school. At the moment, teachers are being vaccinated now in Spain in most regions. So we expect by next academic year, every teacher will have been vaccinated by the time we start the school. You will need to follow the same criteria as any teacher. So if they ask teachers to be vaccinated, you as a language assistant will have to be vaccinated. But hopefully you will have been here before you move over, because things are moving pretty quick here as well.
Do you think that might be part of the visa application?
We haven't heard anything for that at the moment, but what I've been hearing is that airlines are thinking into requiring people to be vaccinated to board the plane. So if you need to have the vaccine to get on the plane, you will need to have it. Okay.
The next question is relates to the Spanish language requirement. This student doesn't really know Spanish, but they have a good understanding of French and is wondering if that would be relevant in an application.
Okay, you should mention it, but you need a little bit of Spanish, even if it isn't much, a little bit. Okay, so if you're thinking of going to Spain as a language assistant, maybe it's the time to get yourself into a few lessons of Spanish or a course or something to bring it up a little bit. Okay, but yeah, I mean, French helps in the sense that we have a lot of words from the same Latin root. The sentence structure is similar, but I mean, I don't just understand French just as I can understand a Spaniard from a different area of Spain. I don't even understand Catalans as well as I would if I knew a lot of French, for example, because Catalan is a little bit like a combination of both languages. Okay.
Thank you. Reyes, do you have a couple more minutes to so we can answer questions?
I have as long as you need.
Great. And if anyone needs to get off of the call, we will be recording the rest of these questions. And so I will send out the recording will be on our website within the next week or so. Okay, so the next question is how people meet each other in Spain, and does the program facilitate social life at all? And are there multiple English teaching assistants at one school?
And necessarily, some schools may have more than one teaching assistant, depending on how big is the school and which region. But in many regions, you just have one teaching assistant at one school. So really, you will meet people through other people. There won't be like something organized as such for meeting purposes. Only the first meeting you have, the orientation, that's a good place to get in touch with the other language assistants from your region. Then you exchange mobile phones and everything. and you start getting in touch. But usually people really know other people because they share with different people, because they meet other people through the school as well. Maybe Brianne can tell us a bit about how she met people. You just meet people in Spain. You don't need to have it organized. It's not like in Spain people only meet people at clubs or at special things organized to meet people. I don't know. It's different.
Yeah, I think it's a great question because it is a program where you go and you have to figure out a lot on your own. And I think there isn't anything, or at least there wasn't at the time that I went, there wasn't organized anything by the Spanish ministry in terms of meetups and things like that. When I went, there was a 2-day orientation to help you just get a little settled, to learn how to apply for your residency, some information about banks, things like that. And the orientation was a really good place to meet people. And I recommend just trying to put yourself out there a little bit. The good news about the program is that you're all sort of in the same spot, right? Like a lot of people are going there on their own without really knowing anyone. And so it's kind of a great breeding ground, so to speak, for making friends, because everyone needs to have some socialization with one another. There's also someone down below posted one link to a Facebook group. There's a lot of, in particular, I know Facebook's a little, like maybe a little bit outdated at this point, but there's a lot of Facebook groups related to this program, depending on your region. I think I'm part of 2 or 3 actually. Those Facebook groups are incredible because it really is meant for the community. And so it can help you with things like finding housing. There's people who've had questions on like renewing visas or getting their NIE, their residency. And then there's questions like if you want to work outside of the program. So for example, like I was also a nanny and I was also a private English teacher. And so I got some of those positions through the Facebook group because people would have too many on their plate and then pass them along. So I highly, highly, highly recommend the Facebook groups because they answer.
But don't say much about that, Brianne, because you are not allowed to have another job if you are on a visa.
Oh, I did not
No.
that. So we're gonna.
I must say that. I am aware that lots of language assistants do a lot of private tuition. We just have a blind eye for that because it's not allowed on the visa.
We can delete that part of the recording.
Okay. Okay. No worries. No worries.
One of the things I wanted to add, so my school had four teachers, but my friends' schools, they would be some of the only ones. But the Facebook groups were actually a way, especially at the beginning in October and November in particular, where people would just say, hey, I want to have a picnic. I'm going to go to Retiro. Let's meet at this particular statue. And then people would just show up and you would just make friends. So that was actually how I met a lot of friends. I didn't make as many friends at my particular school, but I know a lot of my friends made friends through their school. But because I commuted like over an hour to another, it was harder for me to make friends because I really spent my time in Madrid, and the other people who were teaching at my same school actually did live in Alcalá. And my goal, as I mentioned at the beginning, was really to live in a very large city because it was something that I'd always wanted to try. And so so I made friends through other ways. And when I was out, honestly, sometimes I'd meet people like in the metro if I heard them speaking English and I knew that I could tell that they were maybe American with their accent, or I met some people in the park. You just kind of meet people. Sometimes I met people just being out with other people. We just happened to be in line at the same time. And it was a really, really cool experience because there are so many people in the same boat. And in some ways it puts you in a little bit of a vulnerable situation because you're on your own, sort of like in the world in a new country. And so I think it sort of like leverages a different, at least in me, it sort of leveraged a different space for me to be like extra open and extra welcoming to meet other people. And that was a really cool piece of the program too. So I'd highly recommend utilizing the Facebook groups.
There is another thing that you usually tend to live, not your case, Brianne, but usually you tend to live pretty close to where you work. I mean, apart from Madrid, which is a very large town, but usually there are many, many towns in Spain that are like medium size, like 100, 200,000 inhabitants, 300,000 inhabitants, and you walk everywhere or take a bus at most. In my town, I walk everywhere, and I'm anywhere within 10, 15 minutes walk, 20 maybe. So we walk a lot in Spain. We don't use the car so much. And you tend to shop in the same area. You tend to live your life in your same area, and you get to know the people from the coffee shop, from the newsstand, from you name it, where you buy your groceries. You get to know the people around your area. They will get to know you because you are a foreigner. They'll try to make an effort in general to understand you and to be understood. So I think you get to know people more easily in Spain than in the US somehow.
We have a couple more questions, and so I'm just going to keep asking them, and hopefully you're still here to listen. If not, this is being recorded. If students start the application on Profex, will they be able to come back to it at a different time, or does it have to be completed in one sitting?
Oh no, you can start and you can complete it later. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
The next question is, if they have somewhat extensive experience working with children, should they mention this in the personal statement? Yes.
Yeah, they should. Yeah.
Okay. And I imagine you could mention it in the personal statement as well.
In the personal statement, yeah. And I insist the personal statement is very important.
Great, thank you. And then let's see, this is just a follow-up question that we answered already. I believe it is okay to address dear Spanish Ministry of Education.
It is okay. It is okay.
Great. Does anybody have any other questions who's on this call that didn't make it into the chat that would like to unmute at this time and ask?
I just have one quick question.
Mm-hmm.
So the salary you're saying is like $700 to $1,000.
It's a stipend. It can't be called salary, because if it were called salary, you would be a worker in Spain, and the syndicates, the unions, would say that you are taking the post of a teacher from Spain. So it's not a salary. It's just a help, really, for accommodation and for food. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Sorry about that. So I see the stipend then is $700 to $1,000 per month, and so I looked up the average price for one bedroom in Madrid, and it says like $650 to $850. Yeah. I don't know how accurate that is, but Brian, I was wondering if you could kind of talk about sort of the financial restrictions.
I mean, it's not something you need to have some money before you come to the program. You can not just go over to another country with no money at all. You need some backup money, but I know that language assistants can make it on that stipend, because they do not live on their own. If an apartment is 600 to 800 in Madrid, where you get 1,000, you don't live on your own in Madrid. You share with at least 2 more people, which makes it you're going to spend maybe 300 from that money on rent, and you still have 700 for food, travel, and go out, and you can make it. I mean, as I said, the minimum wage in Spain is just over 1,000 euros a month, and some families live on that. Obviously, you are checking Madrid, and Madrid is probably the most expensive city in Spain. And I think that's why Madrid went for the 16-hour with 1,000 euros, because otherwise they wouldn't get candidates.
And I can add to
Sure.
that, because I did live in the city center, and I've been seeing a lot of housing posts, not right now, but I was seeing a lot of housing posts because I'm still on the Facebook group and I still follow it. I think it's actually really interesting about how much they have. I want to say I spent around 400 euros a month for a place, and I was city center. I was walking distance from Seoul, which is the very pinpoint of the city. I was
very good area.
It was I was right by Atocha, and so it was a really good area to live in. And I shared and not sharing a room, but I shared an apartment. It was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath apartment with 3 other folks who lived in various parts of Europe or from different parts of Europe. And it was really affordable. The food in Spain is really cheap and really good. And, you don't have to pay, for like healthcare or things like that. The transportation is reasonable too. So, I was paying for a car back in the US, which includes like gas and insurance and all of these things. And there was expenses that I just didn't have when I lived in Spain. And so 1,000 euros was actually completely fine when I was there. I'm not sure what inflation looks like right now, so I'm not sure if that might change. I was there to the time now. I know now that I know you're not supposed to give private lessons. That's a different topic.
But we know many language assistants do get private lessons because they make a bit more money on that, and it helps them travel around the country.
Yeah,
okay.
and that's kind of my point. So working 16 hours a week, you have a lot of free time.
A lot of time.
A lot of free time. And so for me, like having a little bit of a supplemental income, I didn't need it to pay the bills, but I did a lot of traveling in Spain, but also within Europe and even in Morocco, like Eastern Europe, Western Europe. And so that afforded me like extra fun money. But in terms of like the actual what I needed to sort of survive in Spain, as long as you're reasonable with your expenses, I was still able to go out and enjoy myself without having to have too restrictive of a budget. I'm just not sure what inflation looks like from the time that I was there to now, so I couldn't comment on that, but it was really fun and manageable.
I would always advise you to have some savings when you go, because you don't get paid until later on. So you will have to survive on your own savings for at least over a month, let's say even 2 months, and you will have to give a deposit for the rent as well, which is double the rent really. So you need, it happened to me when I came over to the United States. I knew I needed, at least to come here, I needed over $10,000 to get me started when I travel to the United States. But in Spain, you won't need a car, really. You won't need to buy a car. All you need is to find affordable accommodation you can share with other people. If you are on a region where there is 700 and probably the rent is much lower in that region, think that from 700 you cannot spend more than 300 on accommodation and leave the rest for food. Food is a lot cheaper than it is here, definitely.
For sure. Well, that really explains that. So thank you guys for answering that so thoroughly. So kind of just to clarify, the stipend, not salary.
The stipend. We insist, because then if you get in your mind that it is a salary, and then we can get in trouble with the unions. What is this? You are bringing teachers from? No, we are not bringing teachers from the United States. We are bringing language assistants. They are not taking any jobs from anyone. They are helping our teachers. And it's like a grant, really. It's a program. It's just a help. We know it's not a salary, really.
Sure.
Not a proper salary.
Yes. So basically what I'm understanding, and just kind of confirm this, if this is correct, the stipend that you receive is basically enough to like live your day to day. But realistically, if you're going to want to be doing fun things, such as, traveling, around Spain or even to other European cities and countries, that's going to have to come out of your own savings, or
probably. you may have some money left from that, and you will probably find some other thing to do that gives you some money. As Brian was saying, most language assistants do some private tutoring, and we don't intervene there. We just have a blind eye on
It's
that.
really hard to answer that question. We get asked this question a lot when students are planning to go study abroad. It's going to depend on what your lifestyle is like. If you want to go to Greece and take a yacht around all of the islands, that's going to be a lot more than if you're going to walk the Camino de Santiago in the northern part of Spain and stay in little hospedajes for, you know, €5 a night. That's going to include your meals, which is an amazing experience, by the way. But you know, it's going to be different depending on where you go and what you want to do.
And also the day-to-day that you currently live too. I mean, you can eat out really cheap in Spain and just grab some tapas and, you know, like a drink with some friends, and it can be really cheap. But you could also spend a lot of money if you're eating out at restaurants or going to clubs often. But honestly, I think I used the extra money that I made for larger trips. I did do the Greece trip, no yacht, but definitely I did go to Greece. I went to Turkey and Morocco and all these different places. And so, you know, for the amount of time that I was traveling, I don't think it would have been reasonable to think that any stipend would cover that. And so, but I did also do a lot of like bus trips around Spain. I went to Rioja and I went to southern Spain and did all sorts of things, even day trips just outside of Madrid to like Toledo or wherever, Segovia, and those are really cheap. So you don't necessarily need a lot of extra money to just travel to Spain. You know, it also depends. Like I always stayed in hostels. Sometimes I stayed with people that I knew. One of my friends was doing a program in France and I stayed with her in Paris. And so it just kind of depends, but I think you could probably make it work around some easy trips without having too much extra work.
Yeah.
You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Not to be like inappropriate or anything, but I was kind of also about Spain. Brian, could I send you an email about your friend's experience maybe?
Yeah, not inappropriate at all. In fact, I'll drop my email below and I welcome anyone to reach out to me. I'm always happy to schedule a time to just share more experiences. So feel free to reach out to me there.
Okay, wonderful. Really appreciate that. I will shoot you an email.
Thank you all
Those are all
again
mine.
for coming. If anyone has any, I'm going to stop the recording now.